Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new Trains Are Awesome video. I'm Tom, and before we get into today's content, I want to just quickly introduce today's sponsor. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that there's a new shelf in my living room. Somebody didn't want it anymore, so I got it for free, put about $15 worth of screws and dowels in it, and normally they sell for about $170, so that is definitely funding the next few trips that I go on. Anyways, today's video is something I don't normally do a lot of, because it's maybe a little bit ranty, but occasionally you see stuff on the news that you just have to comment about, and that's what I had last week. A little bit of context: I live in Chicago, Illinois, third largest city in the United States, and transit-wise, Chicago is okay. For US standards, it's actually pretty good, but compared to other places around the world, there's definitely a lot of areas of improvement. One thing that Chicago does have that a lot of cities wish they had was good transit access to both airports. You can take the Orange Line to Midway or the Blue Line to O'Hare. Still, transport policy heavily favors cars and roads. And while this may be a more pedestrian-friendly city than most US cities, there are still many occasions where I'm like, it is difficult to live here and to not have a car. Think of like intersections where 3 streets cross each other, so that if you're just trying to keep going on the street you are as a pedestrian, you have to cross 2 different roads. Or think of Lakeshore Drive. Want to go to the lake, the beautiful lake that Chicago is lucky to have? Make sure you go to one of the few bottlenecks that cross this 8-lane highway first. Don't even get me started on biking here. Bike lanes are great here if you're only going straight and never turn. A common complaint that people who drive cars have in Chicago is how crowded the roads are. And this is backed up. It seems that Chicago has the busiest traffic in the United States and the second busiest in the world. And to prevent my comment section from just being people from other cities saying no, they have the busiest, I'll post a link in the description and I'm going to move on. In particular, the Kennedy Expressway, which is what Chicago calls the section of Interstate 90 between downtown and pretty much O'Hare, is very crowded, and it's only going to get worse in the next 3 years because of a massive construction project. Now obviously, a super crowded highway leading to the airport is not great. So one company says that they have the solution. The company is called Archer Aviation, and this is their idea. Personally, I think this may be one of the worst transportation ideas ever for Chicago, and I'm going to use this video to explain why and what I think would be better for the city. So this flying machine device thing is called an eVTOL, and it's basically kind of like an electric improved helicopter. So United Airlines has invested $10 million into the research of this project and is hoping that starting in 2025, these eVTOLs will take people from somewhere in Chicago, and then you take it to the airport and transfer to your longer flight. And this is supposed to alleviate traffic on the Kennedy, especially while it's under construction. Archer Aviation and United say that the price will be comparable to taking an Uber or a Lyft to the airport, so it's affordable. And to be honest, the technology of it sounds kind of cool. There's a lot of transit YouTubers that like hate on anything that's not traditional technology, and I get their arguments, but like I personally do get excited by gadgets and stuff like that. And so if this comes out and I can find the money for it, I will definitely try it just to have tried it, but I still think this is a terrible idea for Chicago. We already have transit to O'Hare. We have the Blue Line I mentioned earlier, and Metro also has their little-known NorthCentral Service, which does serve O'Hare. I'm going to talk about these more in detail after we talk about these flying pods. So there are 5 issues that I see with these pods. The first is that they have a very limited capacity. I couldn't find exactly how much the Archer Aviation ones can carry, but in general it seems like they can carry between 2 to 6 passengers. To put that into perspective, the CTA Blue Line has train cars which, when I counted, had about 30 seats per car. So if we're very conservative and we say that only people are sitting on the train, only people on the train are people that are going from O'Hare to downtown, that's 8 cars with 30 people in each car, which is 240 people per train. Let's say 6 trains per hour, and you're looking at about 1,400 people per hour. Now let's be generous to the eVTOLs and say that they can fit 6 people. To have the same capacity as the Blue Line, there would have to be 240 per hour. That's 1 pod every 15 seconds, which of course is unattainable. And remember, in this estimate, only people are sitting down on the Blue Line, and it's not including people that get on and off at different stops. There is no way that these flying machines could ever reach the capacity that the already existing trains can. Moving on to issue number 2 is the noise. Now these are electric evolutions of helicopters, so they will make less noise than a traditional helicopter. However, look at this shape, and what does it remind you of? That's right, a drone. And we all know that drones aren't super quiet, so sure, it might be quieter than flying a helicopter over Chicago every 15 seconds, but that's still a noise that's buzzing over the heads of the people that live along this corridor and is going to be extremely annoying. Perhaps one of the biggest concerns for me, other than the capacity, is the location of the so-called vertiport. So this vertiport is actually an already existing facility, and it's located on South Wood Street. Now I know these neighborhoods and I like these neighborhoods, but they are not exactly in downtown Chicago, nor are they at all convenient to reach from all over Chicago. It's actually not that easy to get there by transit, so what I expect people will do is they'll take a ride share, or maybe even they'll drive there anyways. So you're adding the travel time to get from wherever you live to the vertiport to then take the eVTOL to O'Hare. Not to mention the extra price of getting a ride share and paying for the flying thing. The fourth point is that the future of these things isn't even that certain. They have not been approved by the Federal Aviation Administration yet, and they're expecting the approval to be in 2024, which seems like it would be really quick to then go into passenger service 2025. At least everything I know from the railroad world, that's an ambitious timeline for a technology that hasn't been used anywhere else yet. Finally, price. So I mentioned earlier that the companies involved estimate that this will be about the same price as getting a ride share to O'Hare Airport. But I looked up just how much it would cost to go from around downtown to O'Hare, and we're looking at prices of at least $70. $70 might not sound like a lot to, fly in the sky, but remember that a fare on the CTA Blue Line is $2.50, and a fare on Metra is $6 something. So what's going to happen is only rich people are going to use this service because it's not financially sustainable for a large group of people. And it's not only rich people that fly. Adding $70 to $100 something on top of your flight is just a lot of money for some people. And so what's going to happen is something that I've noticed other YouTubers talk about. In particular, there's a YouTuber named Adam Something who, whenever there's this new mega construction project, he likes to criticize that. And one of his recent criticisms really struck a chord with me. It's when he said that the wealthy continue to build this impressive, massive infrastructure that basically just keeps them entertained, while normal people are continuing to just, deal with the deteriorating infrastructure that they're left with. And I think this is a great example. There's this cool, flashy new $70 alternative to get to O'Hare that's really not a great idea, but rich people are going to take it because you know what? I don't have to ride the Blue Line, because there are parts of the Blue Line that are admittedly uncomfortable. And so what's going to happen is less ridership for the Blue Line, and the people that can't afford to fly to O'Hare are going to be stuck on this service that is just grasping for funding. It's crumbling, and I just think that's wrong. Are trains inherently gross, and should we be getting rid of them and looking for alternatives? Absolutely not. And if you look at the rest of the world, trains do not have the stigma that they do here in the United States, nor do buses. I think that the level of dirt and the sense of public unsafety on trains here in the United States is a mostly uniquely American thing, and I think that that has to do with the lack of funding since the big push for automobiles in the last century. Now, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, welcomes this development of Archer Aviation and United Airlines, saying that it's going to be good for the environment. Trains are good for the environment. Both Metra and the CTA are Illinois state-funded agencies, so why don't you invest that Illinois money that I'm happy to pay into public transportation? If more people change to public transportation, that's what's going to be good for the environment. So please, electrify the Metra lines that are owned by Metra. Get the funding for it. This is the wealthiest country in the world, and one of the largest cities in the wealthiest country in the world. We shouldn't be investing in projects that are only going to be fun for the wealthy. Trains are just a better mode of transportation to the airport or really anywhere because they have a much higher capacity, they access downtown a lot better than the vertiport would, and they access a lot more neighborhoods along the way, and it's a cheaper alternative for more people. So that being said, the Blue Line and the Metra that currently exist do have a lot of issues, and that's why I'm advocating to improve them. One thing that I would improve on the Blue Line is to add baggage racks on the train, and this counts for the Orange Line as well. We just got brand new trains on the CTA, and they still don't have any baggage racks, and as a commuter who commutes almost to O'Hare but not quite yet, I'm really tired of getting on a train at the end of a long day of work and having all available seats taken up by suitcases. And I don't blame the people, because where are you going to put your suitcase? But really, there should be some sort of facility for that. I would also improve stations on the Blue Line because a bunch of them are pretty dilapidated, and especially the Blue Line stations in the highway. Some sort of sound barrier would already make it so much more pleasant in terms of noise and temperature. In an ideal world, we'd have an express service on the Blue Line. I don't know how to do that because a lot of the infrastructure is really built in by like tunnels or highways, so that's mostly just a dream idea, but can you imagine if we did have a Blue Line Express? The NorthCentral Service, I actually have an entire video about how to improve it, and basically to summarize my video shortly, we need to have the section between Union Station and O'Hare kind of act as a frequent O'Hare Express service. And of course improve O'Hare Station because right now it's just like a concrete slab in the middle of nowhere. Now the Metro O'Hare Station connects to the airport transit system, which gets you to all the terminals, so it's actually very convenient. But this video was heavily criticized by a lot of people, and the gist of most of the arguments was either we can't afford this, or Canadian National, who owns a part of the tracks, would never allow this because they prioritize their freight. And so it's a stupid idea. So a lack of political will and a stubborn railroad are why in the wealthiest country in the world, we cannot improve an existing railroad between existing stations. If that's the state of our infrastructure, if these eVTOLs are the only option, then we are in a really sad state. So that's the conclusion of this video. These eVTOLs are kind of a vanity project that will not benefit the majority of Chicago citizens, unlike improved train service would. And I'm not trying to rip on the people that have dedicated their careers to developing this technology. I have a lot of respect for engineers, and they do a lot of stuff that I could never do. I'm just saying that I admire leadership that is willing to focus on projects that are more effective and serve a much larger group of people than this. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, or if you just want content about train trips and public transportation, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome because I have a very exciting video coming on Saturday just in time for Easter. See you next time.